the Saturn square Uranus alignment in regards to how the most recent eclipse, the solar eclipse on June 10th, an annular solar eclipse, is now amplifying and taking in and expressing that Saturn-Uranus alignment in a most augmented and dramatic way over the next several weeks into midsummer. June 20th, when the sun ingresses into 0 degrees of Cancer on the summer solstice. And then there's the midsummer during the time that the sun goes into 8 degrees of Leo, which is in early August. So that period of time is where we're going to see the second Saturn-Uranus alignment and the impact of the eclipse that is correlating with that, expressing itself in its most dramatic way. So there's going to be a dramatic transition for the crypto market. And it's not just going to be the crypto market. It's going to be the stock market. It's going to be the bond markets. It's going to be the currency markets. It's going to be the emerging markets. It's going to be every market out there that is extremely vulnerable, right? Because what happens is when we see these big alignments, particularly with Saturn-Uranus, we often see reversals happen. We see events that are highly probable, high impacted, yet neglected threats come to the fore. It's akin to the elephant in the living room, where the highly improbable and unforeseeable, or highly improbable and foreseeable, actually come to a head and express themselves through some type of crisis. So it's a little different than the black swan. We've been talking about the black swan for a long, long time now. We knew a big black swan was coming. Obviously, that was the crisis that COVID triggered. So I don't really believe COVID was the black swan. I believe COVID triggered the black swan that we're in, that's unfolding. And what we're seeing now is a series of developments that are not random surprises, that have been prevalent and have been triggered by COVID as persistent warnings and visible evidence that are going to result in a series of unexpected events that'll be disturbing and upsetting, causing massive reversals of all types. And it's often because of a willful failure of investing, of business, willful ignorance by people managing money, to policy leaders that have been ignoring the persistent warning signals. And we're seeing this all over the place, is going to be the ones who are most impacted. And that's also retail investors. Let's get into it further. So we talked a little bit last time about the gray rhinos, right? So they're not random surprises. They're not random surprises. And since the emergence of the Saturn-Uranus square alignment, gray rhino risks are proliferating around the markets. And we're going to talk about how the Saturn-Uranus and the eclipse are calling out the gray rhinos. Like, in other words, if, certain things are happening on the markets we don't realize, right? Because you can't know everything. You become very aware, which is a foreshadowing or a bigger warning of something yet to come. So again, just to reiterate this, gray rhinos are not to be confused with the black swan, although I still think we're in a black swan event, right? We may have gray rhinos that are emerging out of the black swan. So black swans refer to highly improbable and almost impossible to detect events, where gray rhinos refer to highly probable but neglected threats that have enormous impact. So we have to distinguish those. And there's no doubt that with the Saturn-Uranus is all part of the gray rhino. We had lots of warnings back in 1999, 2000, before the dot-com crash in March of 2001 began, resulting in an 87% drop in the stock market over 2 years. We also had plenty of warnings back in 2006, 2007, even through all of 2008 until the Lehman crisis hit. And we had the greatest financial disaster since the Great Depression, resulting in the Great Recession, right? Where they injected over $20 trillion between December 11th, 2006 till February 2009 in order to prop up businesses, markets, companies, etc., which is all still classified, by the way. They know the numbers. We know the numbers, but we don't know exactly where it went and that's classified, and it went worldwide. It was not something that was specific. The Federal Reserve actually did all of the heavy lifting. So it's just telling you what's really going on here. Now we're heading for something else, and we're starting to see the system start to unwind.
Watch the full presentation of this webinar in the Crypto Astrology Group membership at gta.williamstickevers.com or click the link in the description.